Steve. Steve, where's your tiara? Steve has a very special costume. The tiara will probably last, I think, 20 seconds, and we're done. Okay, I'll take that. But he seems to like his tutu quite well, don't you? Come on. Good boy. So Steve is ready to read the Nutcracker, aren't you? Are you ready for the Nutcracker, Steve? I am ready for the Nutcracker. This is one of my more enjoyed stories. I think it probably, all of us when we were kids, and as we got older, it related to all the fun dreams that we had, especially as it got closer and closer to Christmas time. And it made it really, really special. And Steve is in the story time reading position because he likes that. I don't know if you guys can see him or not. I do apologize. So, without further ado, I think we will hop right into the Nutcracker. And so, chapter 1 starts out on Christmas Eve. And it was Christmas Eve in the Stolbaum house, and young Scarlet and Prince's parents were hosting a party. Guests danced around the Christmas tree trimmed with ribbons and ornaments that sparkled in the light from the fireplace. When the clock struck 8, a special guest arrived. He was a tall man with a warm smile. Might have been a dog trainer, that's what I'm thinking. But we'll see. No, it was the children's godfather, Dosselmer, a clock builder and toy maker. Dosselmer winked at the children and pulled a red clock, kind of like this one, a red clock off of the package that he had been carrying. Underneath was a clockwork castle. Dosselmer flicked on a switch and the castle whirled to life with figure, hi Stephen, whirled to life. Figurines twirled in and out of the castle's tiny doorways and windows, and Scarlet and Prince nodded. While Fritz played with the castle, Dosselmer took took Scarlet aside and handed her another gift, a wooden nutcracker in the shape of a small soldier, kind of like this one. What do you think, Steve? You like it? It's not actually good. It might be, but it's not. Maybe after Christmas. Fritz ran over. A nutcracker, he said. I will go get some nuts to crack. Marie said this gift was too special. She just wanted to look at the beautifully painted nutcracker and pretend he was a brave soldier. Fritz said Scarlet was being silly. A nutcracker should be used to crack nuts, and he grabbed the nutcracker from her to crunch open nut after nut after nut. So he took the nutcracker and he kept cracking and cracking and cracking all of those nuts. And then crunch, the nutcracker's jaw broke. Can you believe that? I believe it, Stephen. Scarlet cried in anger, "Look what you've done, Fritz." The children's mother heard them arguing and insisted they put the gift in the toy cabinet and go to bed. Dosselmer promised the children he'd return in the morning to fix the nutcracker. That night, Scarlet tossed and turned. All she could think about was the broken nutcracker in the dark, cramped in the toy cabinet. She put on her slippers and crept quietly into the parlor. Scarlet took the nutcracker from the cabinet and gently touched its broken jaw. "Don't worry," she said. "You will be like new in the morning when my godfather comes back. Then you can tell me all about your adventures in faraway lands." As the clock struck midnight, Scarlet dozed off under the Christmas tree, still holding the nutcracker in her arms. Suddenly, the clock chimed again. Scarlet popped up. Sure, it must be daybreak, but it was still dark. In fact, only 20 minutes had passed. And there, perched up on the clock, was a Dosselmer. The inventor turned his gaze towards the Christmas tree. And Scarlet saw it grow and grow. In fact, it grew and grew until it was 2 stories high. Scarlet spun around as the whole parlor grew larger and larger all around her. Even the Nutcracker had grown as tall as Scarlet. She wondered if the room had gotten bigger or if she had gotten smaller. It was so hard to know. Steven, you're not really modeling your thing. Here. Oh, now you will. Yeah, now you'll model. You'll do anything for a treat. Anything. Yes, you will. Oops. Oh, come on. Up. Come on. Up. No. Up. Come on. Up. There you go. Go away. Yes, show off that tutu, Steven. Everything looks so different when you're small, Scarlet thought. Suddenly, she heard a scampering sound behind her. She turned and gasped, and there stood a 7-headed mouse with a crown on each head. Kind of like your thing here, Steve. Kind of like that, except you don't know where. It's a tiara. It's very special. It is. It's very special. You're not really into it. You're into the tutu, though. Here, we have to fix that. Come on. Come on. Oh, I guess so. Okay, back to the story. She turned and gasped. The hideous creature was flanked by mouse soldiers. Dozens and more poured out from behind the walls and the floorboards. Go away, Scarlet yelled, as the mice and their king and creatures kept coming. Then suddenly, more amazing things happened. The Nutcracker that Dosselmer had given her sprang to life, brandishing his sword in a battalion of his own. The toy cabinet flung open, and dolls and tin soldiers joined the Nutcracker, and together they fought off the mice. But soon the toys were outnumbered, and the Mouse King was closing in on the Nutcracker. "Stop!" cried Scarlet, who saw her Nutcracker in danger. Then she threw one of her slippers at the Mouse King. He turned and hissed at Scarlet. And as he did, the Nutcracker lunged at him with his sword, and the horrid creature fell to the floor, each of his 7 heads hitting with a thud. The king's mice panicked and dragged their wounded leader back under the floorboards. Scarlet was breathless. What had just happened? Steven? No, hold it. The next morning, Miss Stahlbaum nudged her daughter awake. Scarlet had slept under the tree all night. She told her mother all about the Nutcracker and the mice and the 7-headed king. She explained that the critters had scampered from behind the walls and up under the floorboards, and the Nutcracker had fought them off with the help of her other toys. Scarlet's mother smiled. "What a colorful dream," she said. No, Scarlet insisted. "It was real. The mice are all under here. Look!" And she started to jump up and down. Yes, she did. You know how to jump up and down, Stephen? Do you? Yes, you do. Yes. And she started to jump up and down on the floorboards just to prove her point. Yes, you're doing a fantastic job. But not a single mouse came out. Miss Stahlbaum kissed her daughter's cheek and said it was time to get dressed. Dosselmer was on his way to fix the broken Nutcracker. Yes, he was. He was on his way. Maybe it was a dream, thought Scarlet, but it seemed so real. Probably when you have a dream about me giving you treats all the time, because it just doesn't happen. The toy maker arrived with a bag of tools to go to work repairing the Nutcracker's broken jaw. As he hammered and glued on the sanded wood, Marie told him about her dream. "Even you were in it," she said. "It seems so real." "Is that so?" said Paul. He told Scarlet that below the floorboards of the castle lived a family of royal mice, headed by a mouse queen. The mouse queen loved to play tricks on the humans. One day she cast a spell to trick Princess Palpit's mother and brothers into eating all of the sausages in the castle. That would be something than you would do. You would eat all the sausages you could find. I'd probably help you, but still. When they were too full to eat more, the mice feasted on the lengths that they had left behind. The king was furious that his dinner had been eaten and that his wife and sons had been tricked. He summoned the court inventor, who had also happened to be named Dosselmer. The king commanded him to create traps that would get rid of the mouse queen and her children for good. Dosselmer laid the traps all around the castle. Snap, snap, snap! They caught the mouse children, but not the mouse queen. The royal mouse flew into a rage and swore revenge, vowing to harm the king's child, Princess Palpet. So the royal family surrounded Pearlpat with cats to catch any mice that tried to get near her. But when the cats fell asleep, the queen mouse cast a spell on the girl. The next morning, Princess Pearlpat looked in the mirror and screamed. Instead of seeing her beautiful reflection, she now saw that she had a huge head and a white grin and a beard made of cotton, just like a nutcracker. The cat screeched at her awful appearance and ran off. The king was beside himself and gave Dosselmer 4 weeks to cure his daughter. But even the brilliant Dosselmer could not make Princess Pearlpat beautiful again. Finally, he brought the royal astrologer to advise the king. The astrologer read the princess's horoscope and informed the king that the only way to cure his daughter was to have her eat the largest, hardest nut in the entire kingdom, called the Crackatut. But it had to be cracked by a man too young to shave. Next, the astrologer said, the young man would have to hand the kernel to the princess with his eyes closed, and keeping his eyes shut, must take 7 steps backwards without tripping. Only then would the spell be broken, and Pearlpat's beauty return. The king sent Dosselmer and the astrologer to search for the nut and the young man. If they found both, the young man could marry the princess, and if not, he advised the inventor and the astrologer to not return. The 2 men traveled the entire kingdom. They found youths eager to crack nuts, but either the nut was too small and cracked easily, or too large and hard and impossible to break open. After years had passed, and we gave him 4 weeks, Dosselmer and the astrologer headed home with nothing to show the king. They stopped to rest at the home of Dosselmer's brother, a puppet maker. The inventor saw that his brother's son, whom he had not seen since he was very small, was now a handsome young soldier in training. When he was not in school, he helped his father carve the puppets from the wooden trees nearby. What kind of trees, the inventor said, and asked the young man eagerly. Nut trees, he said. In fact, ours are the hardiest and healthy nut trees in all of the kingdom. Go see for yourself. Hanging from the branches were nuts almost as large as Dosselmer's head. At the top of one of the tiny trees, there was a nut so large that it completely blocked out the sun. With nothing to lose, the men sent a messenger ahead to announce their return. They placed the nut in a box for safekeeping and prayed it was the Cracker's nut. They also prayed that Dosselmer's nephew was the lad who could open it. Dosselmer and the astrologer led the young man into the palace ballroom where the king was overseeing a celebration to mark the occasion. There's the princess, the inventor said, pointing at Pearlpat. Go to her. The young man clutched the box with the nut inside and made his way through the crowd of the dancing guests. Finally, he reached the royal family. The soldier in training stood before the king and the queen and Princess Pearlpat. Her head certainly was large, and his uncle had said, her grin was as wide as her head, and her beard cotton, just as his uncle had said. They took a breath and opened the box. The Crackatut whispered the king with eyes wide open, "Go on, son, crack it." The young man opened his mouth as wide as he could, and he clamped down on the nut. Crack! Just like that. Just like that. It was a big crack. It was a big crack, yes. The young man, the large hard shell shattered into pieces, and the astrologer prompted the lad close his eyes and hold the kernel from the cracker nut out to the Princess Pearlpat. She grabbed it and swallowed it eagerly. Am I beautiful yet? Asked the princess. No, not yet, the astrologer explained. Then he tapped the young man on the shoulder. Take 7 steps backwards and keep your eyes shut. The youth took one certain step backwards, and another, and then another. Oh my goodness. You would think that you didn't just have dinner. This is what we would think. This is really what we would think. Sit. Go forward. That's good. Okay, we're over. The youth, with each step, Princess Pearlpat grew more and more impatient. Hurry it up, she cried. Everyone marveled that with each step, the princess grew more and more beautiful again. As the lad took his 7th final step, the Mouse Queen scampered across the floor and tripped him. The princess cried and ran to the mirror, sure she would be ugly again. But she was beautiful as ever. The curse had now fallen onto the young man. His head grew large, his grin grew wide, and his chin sprouted a cotton beard, just like the Nutcracker. When Princess Pearlpat beheld the awful-looking man, she ran about shrieking that she would never, ever marry such an ugly soldier, even if he looked exactly as she had for so long. She was the beautiful Princess Pearlpat and deserved only the best. Stephen, if that sounds like what you are. And with that, she banished Dosselmer's poor nephew from the castle forever. He returned home, and though people jeered at his strange face, he never lost his happy, sunny disposition. That moonlit night, Scarlet went to bed, but she could not sleep with Dosmer's tale fresh in her mind. Suddenly, a shadow fell across her face. She looked up, and looming over her was the Mouse King. It's just a dream, Scarlet cried. She tried to tell herself, but that was little comfort because the creature was hovering over her and looked very angry. Go away! Scram! Scarlet cried at the Mouse King. Not until you give me all of your Christmas candy. I want every sugar plum and gingerbread cookie and chocolate in the house, the Mouse King said with a sneer. Scarlet gathered up every bit of candy she could find and laid it in front of the Mouse King. He gobbled it up and demanded more. She gave him cakes and muffins and shortbread, and still he was not satisfied, fat but not satisfied, and threatened to bite her precious Nutcracker into bits unless she found more. It was so exciting to see. But there is no more, Scarlet cried, not knowing what to do to save her Nutcracker. But the Nutcracker could handle things himself. He arrived with his sword drawn and vanquished the Mouse King once and for all. Then he used his powerful jaws to bite off each of the creature's 7 heads. Ew, that was kind of messy, I'll bet. The Nutcracker handed Scarlet the 7 crowns and beckoned her to come with him to the land of sweets, where toys came to life, fairies granted wishes, and candy grew in the green meadows. He told Scarlet to close her eyes for just a few seconds. When she opened them, she and the Nutcracker were in a boat floating down a river of pink lemonade. Scarlet saw 2 golden dolphins splashing alongside them all along the way. As the boat entered the harbor, Scarlet saw ice cream cake towers topped with whipped cream and sugar. We're having dessert tonight, Steve. Yes, we are. There were gingerbread houses and sweets from every corner of the world. A beautiful sugar plum fairy and her sisters, Juliet and Cosette, placed flowers around Scarlet's neck and presented her with chocolates, candy canes, and enormous lollipops. The fairies swirled around her, performing the most beautiful ballet Scarlet had ever seen. When Scarlet had seen all the sugary sights and had her fill of all the delicious treats, the sugar plum fairy and her sisters, Juliet and Cosette, bid her and the Nutcracker farewell and sent them off in a carriage pulled by two beautiful white horses. All of the dolls and the fairies waved goodbye as the carriage pulled away. Bless you. Scarlet woke up in her bed the next morning and once again ran to tell her mother what had happened. What an active imagination you have, Scarlet. Now run along and go do your studies. But Scarlet felt something in her pocket and pulled out the Mouse King's 7 crowns. She looked at her mom. Look, I have these. That's nice, said the mother, who was busy making breakfast in the kitchen. Scarlet took the Nutcracker to her room and cried because nobody believed her. Only the Godfather's gift knew the truth. She told the Nutcracker that she would keep him forever and would always love him no matter what he looked like, unlike the selfish Princess Pearl. Then, just as one of Scarlet's tears fell onto the Nutcracker, she heard a voice from the other room. It was Dulcimer. Scarlet put the Nutcracker down and ran out to greet her godfather. But he wasn't alone. He brought with him was a handsome young man in a military uniform. This is my nephew, Dulcimer said. Scarlet's eyes widely shined. She thought he was the most handsome boy she had ever met. The inventor encouraged the two to spend some time together, so they ran off to play and to talk. Scarlet was delighted to meet someone so kind-hearted and smart. Scarlet grew sad when it was time for him to leave, but before he headed home, the young man bent down on one knee, held Scarlet's hand. By swearing your love for me, no matter what I look like, you have broken my curse. When we are older, I will return, and when I do, will you marry me? Yes, 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 cried Scarlet, who could hardly believe what was happening. Was it possible? Had she really just met the Nutcracker? This time she thought she must be dreaming. But just to be sure, Scarlet ran back to her room to find her Nutcracker. It was not in her dresser. Where had she left it? She searched and searched all about her room, under every piece of furniture and under every cushion. But the Nutcracker was gone. Scarlet just smiled and waited for his return. Such a cute story. What do you think, Steve? Was it a cute story? I like a cute story. One of those stories that, I don't know, one of the simple messages of do the right thing, be a good person, you know, and put a, come here, and put a tutu on your dog, because, well, that's what they like, huh? Yes. Are you quite embarrassed? You don't seem to be too embarrassed. I know the truth over there. You really don't. Yes. You are a good one. So, I hope everyone's been enjoying Story Time with Santa. It's definitely been fun. I think Steve's enjoying it more than anybody else, but that's just Steve.